Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here to break down the WPIAL Team Championships and preview the PIAA tournament. Also have an exciting tournament as well this weekend for those with WPIAL schools not in the state championship. So a lot to get into, Jeff. Let's talk about Double A and let's get into the champs. You got them on your chest right now. The Burgestown Blue Devils. I had them on last week. I predicted them to win. I thought this was their year, and they get it done. Looking at the results, obviously we talked about everything leading up to the semifinals, but semifinals, Burgestown and Burrell, they just seem like on a collision course with one another. Burgestown beats Fraser 49-24. Burrell over Quaker Valley 41-24, and Quaker Valley ends up in third place, beating Fraser 46-27. Just really taking care of business was Quaker Valley to get the third place nod. But how about Burgestown? They come up into the final. They knock off Burrell 31-24.
Yeah, I mean, you called it, right? It's definitely their year. They've been wrestling really, really well all year. It's why they're undefeated. They certainly came up big. There was a few matches that I thought were toss-ups, right? Cooper Hornack and Gavin Suika. They ended up wrestling at 33. Hornack's down at 27 right now. Slovic and Zanella also I thought was a little bit of a toss-up, but some of their big guys came up big. Parker Senapal got a major over Bartucci, who I think is really one of the better freshmen at 114 pounds this year, and they're able to get some bonus where they needed them, right? Joey Senapal was able to get some bonus points. Kovac was able to get some bonus points. And then Rudy Brown, he had a huge win. I had that circled as a toss-up should Rudy Brown and Nico Zanella meet, and Rudy Brown ends up winning 5-3. So that was a big one, and Burgestown ends up forfeiting the 72-pound match. But, yeah, it was we expected the Burgestown-Burrow match, right? Burgestown with the big guns, did they have enough, right? And I'll even say for Burgestown, Tyler Cody at 215 pounds, I didn't think that he was going to be that close with Luke Boylan, and he ended up losing in overtime. So those types of guys needed to step up, and they did, and that's why Burgestown is your 2023 WPIAL champions.
Yeah, and they got the big results, obviously, like you talked about. Parker Senapal's major, but Baronic gets his fall. Joey Senapal gets a fall. Eric Kovac with a fall. So those were big bonus points that Burrow, outside of Cam Baker at 107, really just didn't get. And that's something that Burrow usually does get, is that fall or big win that you don't really expect them to get. And really, I mean, those first two matches were true toss-ups, both overtime matchups. Jacob Noyes gets it done for Burgestown. But then, like you said, Tyler Cody pushing Luke Boylan. Had that match gone to Burgestown, I mean, I think you'd say it's over already at 215 just
Right.
because you weren't expecting that one at all. But, yeah, kudos to Burgestown getting it done. We've been talking about them really for the last 3 years. If you think about it, a couple years ago, they had a couple of matches against Burrell. Had it gone their way, they would have beat Burrell. But, obviously the upsets come. Burrell does what they usually do. And then last year, Gavin Suika getting injured. If he doesn't get injured, we're talking about potentially Burgestown winning it last year. So it's almost felt like it was a long time coming. This was the group to get it done, right? Because of Senapal.
Senapal being a senior, this was their year.
This was their year, absolutely. So yeah, just kind of wrapping things up there. Burgestown getting it done, winning their WPIAL championship. That it's a long time coming for the Blue Devils. They go into this one here at the top of the PIAA bracket. Unfortunately for the WPIAL, things did not go well on Monday night. Fraser dropping a 45-24 decision to Fort LaBeouf. Quaker Valley a tough 34-26 loss to Huntington. So we go into the PIAA tournament with only two teams from District 7, Jeff, Burgestown and Burrell.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm totally surprised by that. Fraser, we know how good they were up through the WPIAL tournament. However, it's just a different game when you're coming in with some of those teams from District 10 and even I would say District 9 as well. Those teams this year they're really deep. So Fort LaBeouf coming out with a win, 45-24, wasn't necessarily shocking. Fort LaBeouf's a team that beat Burrell this year, so they're really solid. And Quaker Valley Huntington, I definitely thought that was more of a toss-up match. Looking at Huntington, they didn't finish the District 6 tournament the way they thought they would. They got upset by United, and Quaker Valley was right there with them, just didn't have enough. And like you said, it was tough to see those two teams drop out before even getting a chance to wrestle in Hershey. But you have to be excited about the two teams that you do have in Hershey, especially Burgettstown. Burgettstown got a really nice draw. I'll just say that. If you listen to our show from last night with the Four Horsemen. We got to come up with a cool name now, Greg, since we're the Four Horsemen. Tom, Mitch, Dustin, and myself. We had talked about the top half being so much lighter than the bottom half of the state bracket, and Burgettstown is certainly in a really good position to finish very high in Hershey. So it's the winner of that WPIAL tournament definitely got rewarded with the draw in the state bracket.
Well, let's talk about that top half, Jeff, and go into some more detail for the folks from the Burgettstown area and really for the WPIAL that may not have gotten a chance to listen. I think if you look at the bracket, looking just at your rankings, right, Saucon Valley there, as well as Chestnut Ridge. Those are probably the two teams that are in Burgettstown's way to potentially getting to a final. How does Burgettstown really match up with those two teams, and can they get it done against either one?
I definitely think they can, and that's why last night we had Tom Hausnick on from District 11. He's one of the best there is in the business, and he's seen Saucon Valley a whole heck of a lot this year. And he kind of shed some light on some things with some injuries to Saucon Valley. They were just unable to get healthy towards the end of the year. So, I'm very confident with Burgettstown being potentially in the semifinals, to be honest with you. Looking at that match with Honesdale had a really good District 2 tournament. They had lost to Lackawanna Trail about 2 weeks prior to that, and then they reversed that and got the win to win the District 2 title. They have a good team. There's a few guys that kind of stick out to me. Josh Young at 127, he's a senior. He's been kind of a really consistent wrestler for them. You also have Paul Renner up at 215 pounds, also a senior. And these guys bounce around a little bit. They do a little bit of moving. But really, I think if you look at Burgettstown, they just have the hammers all the way through, where from 107 all the way through 145, all the way up to 152, I would say, they're just really solid, right? And that's going to go a long way in Hershey, and especially I think if they face Saucon Valley, I think that relentless push that they're going to have with those top guys. Now, of course, they're going to get. Saucon Valley's not going to go away easily, right? And they're the returning state champs, so clearly they're going to come to wrestle. But to be honest with you, I'm not putting the cart before the horse. Saucon Valley United, I think, is going to be a good match. Tom Hausnick was kind of like, that's more of a toss-up. I kind of think more Saucon Valley is going to be in the driver's seat there, but United just going to continue running through this Cinderella story.
Well, let's say the Burgettstown gets it done against Saucon Valley. You out of that next quadrant, I think Chestnut Ridge would be the favorite. Fort LaBeouf's going to be obviously a challenger there, but how do they shape up with Chestnut Ridge? Chestnut Ridge is a tough out. They're a team that's every year they're in it.
Yeah, Chestnut Ridge they build their team to be in the dual tournament. Their guys and their coaches and their community really, they put so much emphasis and focus on the team tournament, right? It's a very unique situation. You don't see that a whole lot, right? That's more important to them than those individual championships, and that's impressive, right? And there's a reason why they're as good as they are in Hershey is because of that. So Coach Deputy is going to be, getting his guys ready. Chestnut Ridge is very good. There's no doubt about it. That match with West Perry, I think, is a good one. So that quadrant on the top half, that second quadrant there, really, and we debated this for about an hour last night. There's a lot of toss-ups there. Warrior Run, Fort LaBeouf. I think that's a toss-up match. I think that could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised to see, if I had to guess, I would say Chestnut Ridge, Warrior Run, and Fort LaBeouf are more the three favorites to come through on that bottom half. But I wouldn't be surprised if any three of those actually pull it out and come out to the semifinals. It's really that much of a toss-up, in my opinion. So, yeah, Chestnut Ridge is probably the team that most people are looking at getting through, but I wouldn't sleep on Warrior Run and certainly not Fort LaBeouf. Fort LaBeouf's a team that, just a few weeks ago had a great ultimate duels tournament. They ended up winning 3 out of their 4 matches. The only loss was to Reynolds. They beat Chestnut Ridge 35-24. They beat Burrell 36-19. They beat Brookville 33-25. So this is a team that's already, have those big wins, right? So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, Fort LaBeouf could be, on paper, Fort LaBeouf is a team, right? But throw a wrench in there with Warrior Run. Warrior Run's just consistent. Very, very consistent.
So out of those matchups, so Jeff, is there one that you think Burgestown shapes up better than any other, or and just in general? I mean, their chances of making it to the final, what are they?
I think they're good. I would give them like a 60% chance of coming through if they wrestle like they did against Burrow. If they wrestle with that same intensity with their guys, not their starters, not their stars. If those guys wrestle to the level that they did against Burrow, I think they are in the semifinals and then into the finals potentially. I do believe that they'll get to the finals. It's just a matter of the matchups. I would rather, if I'm Burgettstown, I would rather see a Warrior Run or a Fort LaBeouf than I would Chestnut Ridge, just because of the way the lineups are and the way that the flexibility is with both those teams. I think I would rather see a Fort LaBeouf or a Warrior Run, but really all three of those teams, and even include West Perry, they're all very good. They're all very even. There's not a whole lot of parity between those teams. So I would probably pick Chestnut Ridge. I think I did last night. I can't remember. It was a really long show. Maybe I picked Fort LaBeouf. It would either be Fort LaBeouf or maybe did I pick Warrior Run? I don't know, Greg. There's really I don't know who I picked.
Wait, did you pick West Perry? I mean, I don't know.
I definitely didn't pick West Perry. I definitely didn't pick West Perry. I can tell you I didn't pick West Perry. I've filled out a few brackets, right? I definitely picked Burgettstown to go to the finals. Who they beat in the semifinals, I can't remember. But if gun to my head, which I've used that analogy before and I was very wrong, I would say Chestnut Ridge, but Fort LaBeouf, you can't count them out. So to answer your question, I'm very, this is like the State of the Union. I'm just going to talk in circles around the questions, right? You're going to ask me about classified documents, and I'm going to say, I can refer you to somebody else, but I don't have the answers, Greg.
Well, obviously it'd be wonderful to see Burgestown in that final, to get them to have that opportunity to wrestle for a state championship after just winning their first WPIAL title in, how many, 40-some years. But you look at their chances of bringing home a medal in general. If they don't, you never want to say you want to look at, forward or anything like that. But if they don't get it to the final, for their best chances to get a medal, they'd have to lose in the quarters. Because they lose in the semis, they're not going to get a medal. Because Notre Dame, GP, and Faith Christian are that much above the rest. And they're meeting in the quarterfinals. Would you agree with that?
Oh, wholeheartedly, right? And I said this yesterday that it's a shame, but the top 2 teams are just so far ahead of the rest of that field that yes, if they would lose that and drop down, they're gonna get one of those teams, and that's not good, because the 2 best teams are going to meet in the quarterfinals. There's just no doubt about it. Notre Dame and Faith Christian the separation between them and the rest is very far, right? There's a huge gap there. It's a shame that they are going to wrestle in the quarterfinals, but it is what it is. There's nothing you and I are going to do that's going to change that. It allows Burgettstown a chance to potentially get into the state finals and wrestle on Saturday afternoon. So you're right. If they make it through the quarter. I would rather lose in the quarterfinals than the semifinals, 100%, because that's just a tough road for them.
Yeah, and I think that's just something, as the coaches, I'm sure the Vigilante brothers are looking at it and saying, hey, look, in that quarterfinal matchup, if we do end up falling short to a Saucon Valley, for example, we can come back and we can still get a medal. The road is still open for us to be able to get that. They might have to beat a team like Burrell again, but that road is there. And then obviously once you win that match, you guys better give it everything you got, because the semifinals is the one chance for you to bring home a state medal and be in the state finals at the same time. As a combination effect. So make it happen here in the semifinals. So as if you didn't need any more, motivation as far as that goes. Let's look at the other team in the WPIAL, Burrell. They got a rematch against Brookville in the opening match. They just had wrestled them just a couple of weeks back. They lost to Brookville 31-25. What can be different in this match for Burrell to get the W?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about it every year. I feel like Burrell goes up to the ultimate duels and they get beat up a little bit, right? They come back bruised and broken a little bit, and then something happens between that and the state tournament, and all of a sudden they're looking better, right? The one thing that they have is Cooper Hornack is going to be able to go 27, right? So last time Cooper Hornack wrestled Cole Householder, so one of their best guys. Two of the best guys between the two teams went head-to-head at 133. That could potentially flip, right? They could move those guys around a little bit, and they have more flexibility. Depending on who wins a flip, who presents at 27, they could potentially get Cooper Hornack away from Householder, which then would allow them to likely get more bonus points. So there was a few things, there was a few decisions that could have been flipped, right? You're asking about Burrell, how they can kind of come back and kind of save some points. One would be 160. Koya Brown got a major over Nico Zanella. I think you can – I had that more as a toss-up, to be honest with you, and it ended up being a major decision for Brookville. So you could probably that could probably be lessened. But also Luke Boylan bumped up to 285 and beat Bailey Miller. Bailey Miller's a pretty good heavyweight, has some wins over Wilson Spires. So that I don't know if I necessarily want to, if I'm Burrell, if I want to risk that again. And then if you look at 114, Julian Bertucci and Jared Popson was a 2-1 match. Popson has been up and down this year. He's had some wins where you're like, man, this guy's, he's definitely in the conversation for a state medal. Then other ones, you're just like, how, what's going on here, right? Just a little inconsistent. Bertucci's only a freshman. So if you flip that one, right, if you flip Bertucci gets a win over Popson, you flip Zanella only giving up a decision to Koya Brown, right?
You got a win right there.
That's going to put you in a better position, right? But everything else has to kind of go as planned, right? You have to still get some bonus points. You got to get Cooper Hornack potentially away from Householder, I would still say. And you got to win some of those toss-up matches that they did win the first time around. But, to be honest with you, Brookville won most of those toss-ups. They did lose Householder, but there was they wrestled tough, and this one's going to be close. This was definitely going to be a nail biter, and it all comes down to the flip. It's hard for me to explain to people who don't know wrestling how important a flip of a disc is, right? Because they're just like, I don't get it. Like, why is me flipping this? And I'm like, because you control matchups essentially. You can kind of pick and choose where you want guys a little bit more, and the flip is going to be important in this one, but it's definitely going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, to a degree, right? Because there could be some matches that end on an odd and end on an even that you want to decide on, but yeah, you get that opportunity to make those decisions as far as which ones you want the most. Burrell, let's say they pull off that win against Brookville, Jeff. How do you like them against? I'm assuming Berks Catholic, though Russell Canton, but against a Berks Catholic team.
Yeah, I went the whole way through and said Berks Catholic's they're going to win it all, man. Berks Catholic is I kid because some Berks Catholic folks weren't happy with where they were at team rankings. Berks Catholic is very complete. They have a very, very good team with just a lot of stars, a lot of guys that are just 20 and 30 match winners. So I do believe Berks Catholic's going to beat Canton. I like Berks to get to the semifinals. They're the new kid on the block, right? They are what Faith Christian was a few years ago, right? Maybe even last year. So Berks Catholic has gotten exponentially better over the last year, really over the last 2 years. They're very well coached. The Sola brothers are two legends from District 3. They've had success basically everywhere they've gone as coaches. Berks Catholic, I think, is, their team has not been at the Giant Center like Brookville, Burrell, and like Chestnut Ridge. Brookville and Burrell have spent more time in Hershey than probably any other team here, maybe aside from Reynolds, right? Over the last 10 years, 20 years, right? They've just been there so many times that their culture it's not a big stage to them. It's just the biggest dual tournament that they have, right? That's it. They've been in big matches before. Berks Catholic, they don't have that experience. And that's not a knock. That's just a fact, right? So I do think Berks Catholic, though, they have enough firepower to get out to the semifinals. I don't necessarily think that they match up. Burrow and Brookville are essentially the same team, in my opinion. Like, they're the same. They're carbon copies of each other in a lot of ways. So I just think Berks Catholic may have a little bit more gas in the tank, and they have a lot of hammers, and that always helps. The more hammers you have, i.e. Faith Christian, you're gonna be in good shape.
Well, you look at Burrell, and we talked about Burgestown and where you don't want to lose. If you're Burrell, you get that win over Brookville, you better get that win over Berks Catholic, because then if not, you're going to fall in that same quadrant in the consolations with the loser of Notre Dame GP and Faith Christian, and which means your chances of bringing home a medal are not very good. So you want to, if you lose to Brookville, you got every chance in the world to battle all the way back. But if you win against Brookville, you better get the team up and ready to go. Not that Burrell really needs it, right? Because they're always motivated, especially in the Giant Center. But you better make sure that they get that W over Berks Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to focus on I know Coach Shields is going to be preaching one match at a time, right? Let's not get too, because when you do start doing those things, right? When you do start looking ahead and trying to game plan and say, well, we got to win this one, because if we don't, we're going to, you got to control what you can control. And Coach Shields has been doing this for a very, very long time as a competitor and as a coach. So I think they're going to be focused on Brookville, the task at hand. They'll cross that bridge when they get there. If I had to guess.
Well, no, what I mean, though, is that obviously Brookville is the focus. That's the only focus. They get it done against Brookville, though. The mindset has to go to, we have to get this win.
Yeah.
It is a must win if we want a medal.
I agree, because it's like the Burgestown thing. I mean, you don't want to say, like, hey, guys, we don't have a shot against Faith Christian or Notre Dame. Obviously you don't want to say that, but in reality, you definitely want to, how important it is if you make it to the semifinals to punch through, right? That's for sure.
So it'll be interesting to see, Jeff. So I guess right now you're calling for one WPIAL AA medal coming home.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Burgettstown has a very, they're in a good position in the bracket, which really helps. So I definitely think that they're in a good position. They're in the driver's seat, in my opinion. If they wrestle like they did against Burrell, there's no reason why they can't be in the state finals. That's just, they're that good, right? So, and some other teams are hurting a little bit. Like Saucon's not the Saucon from last year, but and that other quadrant. I mean, again, would I be shocked if one of those other teams makes it through? Absolutely not. Because that quadrant is so kind of, there's so much similarities between Ridge, Warrior Run, Fort LaBeouf. If you said Fort LaBeouf is in the finals against Faith Christian, I wouldn't be shocked, or Warrior Run or Chestnut Ridge. But I definitely think Burgettstown controls their destiny up top.
Sliding over to AAA now in the WPIAL semifinals, Waynesburg defeats Connellsville 45-25. Cannon McMillan over Hempfield 37-36. Hempfield area, I should say. In that match, Cannon McMillan ends up forfeiting the final five weight class. So not as close as the score indicates. Vince Augustine, prior to the match, he mentioned the one weight I didn't really want it to start at was like a 152, 160, and of course 160 became the draw, because if you look at the forfeits that Hempfield area got, Ethan Lieben, Eli Carr, Lucas Capusa, that's their best guys. They're hammers that would probably get 6 points for them anyway. So some say, well, the match wasn't as close as the score indicates, but it would have been semi-close, so to speak. But how about the job, Jeff, of the first and third place matches, and in particular, they look at Hempfield area first. They get the opportunity to wrestle in the PIAA tournament, 32-31 over Connellsville. Just can't say enough about Hempfield's run coming in to this one, as the 11 seed and beating the teams that they beat. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a harder gauntlet, and they went through it and they did it. Kudos to Vince DeAugustine, Jeff Shaw, and all the Hempfield area wrestlers, beating Trinity, beating Butler, and beating Connellsville to earn the right to the PIAA tournament. Up top, Cannon McMillan, they get it done against Waynesburg. Has to go to tiebreaker to win it. They end up forfeiting the last weight class because they knew they had the matches won 7-6. But boy, that was just a duel that just really did not go the way Waynesburg had hoped. They ended up getting the matchup with Rocco Welsh and Matt Furman, but Welsh does not get any bonus, and that ends up being crucial, right, because of a tied match. But then Gabe Stafford beats Roan Tussin, Gino Calgero beating Brody Evans, and you could just tell after those first four weights, okay, Cannon McMillan has cut the lead of what it was in the last duel. And then from there, Kai Sheftik turns the tables, beats Tanner Mazinko. You're thinking, okay, maybe now Waynesburg has gotten it back. But then, the Joe Simone ends up re-injuring his knee. Kudos to him, boy. What a heart he has to tough it out to finish out the match against Andrew Binney. But that was a good match in the making until he got hurt. And Binney gets the W. And, of course, that just ends up really deciding the fate of the match.
Yeah, I mean, the fortitude that Joe Simone showed, sticking out there, barely able to walk on one leg, like you said, kudos to him. But kudos to Hempfield area, man. I can't say enough about Hempfield. And let's go back to the start of the season for Hempfield, right? They lose to Butler December 17th, 42-30, right? So now you're saying, okay, where are we at? They beat Fort LaBeouf 43-29, which was a good win for them. Then Candimac comes to their house and beats them 40-24 in just a very lopsided victory. Latrobe beats them 45-28. Connellsville beats them 34-27. So you're saying, okay, yeah, we're the 11th seed, and they were the 11th seed for a reason because of those losses, right? But then they come out and they beat Trinity 34-33. They beat Butler 32-31, right? Just nipping through and just kind of squeaking by, but finding a way to get it done. And then they're very close with Candimac, right? They're right there. Yes, I know there was forfeits, but they wrestled a little bit better than they did the first time around. Maybe a little, when clearly they wrestled a lot better than they had in December. And then for them to beat Connellsville, to flip the script and then beat them for the third place match, you just knew this team was destined. They were wrestling really, really well. But I also can't say enough about Candimac either, right? Candimac was able to just turn the tables on what happened with them early in the year with Waynesburg, right? So that, to me, the stories here are Candimac, coming out of, from the ashes, so to speak, to come back to win a WPIAL title, but also Hempfield area able to kind of grind their way through. That's why this year was so fun, because we didn't know who was gonna, no one really would have had that, the way they finished on their bingo card and been like, yes, this is 100% what's going to happen, right? There was a endless amount of possibilities, how the teams were going to finish out, and it was just a lot of fun to see unfold, because I mean, Trinity could have been in there, right? Latrobe, if things had went their way, they could have been in there. Butler could have been easily there, right? Connellsville, we very easily could have seen a lot, 3 different representatives for the WPIAL in Hershey, but Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It really was, and it was a heated match all the way throughout between Canamac and Waynesburg, and just a lot of great individual matchups. And I think one thing that people don't realize too is that you bump up wrestlers a lot of times thinking, okay, I'm getting better matchups, and sometimes it just doesn't work out, right? Brody Evans at 189 may be a favorite to beat Gabe Stafford, but you put Roan Tussin in there, giving up all that weight to a very good Gabe Stafford, and he loses the match. Same with Brody Evans. Gino Calgaro, by the way, I think one of the most improved wrestlers in the WPIAL from last year to
100%.
this year.
100%. He's wrestled out of his mind, and not only is he beating guys, he's really beating guys. He's majoring them, he's pinning them, he's tacking them. Like, I mean, the kid is just, man, and he had been wrestling for a while. Like, he was coming up through the youth ranks. Took a few years off, but it's like he just never missed a beat. He's wrestled so well this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does in the individual portion
Same.
because of just how well he's done all season. But, again, just the matches and the way that Waynesburg just couldn't keep up with I think that the shift from 72 to 285 and the point differential from the last time to this time, it didn't go in their favor this time around. And I think it's because of the fact you put Welsh on Furman, and Furman doesn't give up a major, and that was huge. But yeah, I mean, you look at these two teams, both pretty evenly matched, but now you go into the PIAA tournament, Jeff, and you look at the matchups and where they're at. You have, let's just start up top. Hempfield area is going to take on Penridge in that opening match. Waynesburg will have Shikellamy, and for Cannon McMillan they have Chambersburg. Let's just kind of start with the opening round. How do you like the WPIAL in the opening round?
Yeah, so Hempfield definitely had a good draw, right? They get Taylor Alderdice from the City League. They beat them 72-6, and now they get a very unexpected, not unexpected, but as Tom Hausnick said last night, they were expected to get to Hershey. I don't think a lot of people had them as winning it, right? At the District 1 championships. I think Hempfield matches up very well with Penridge. I think Hempfield beats Penridge. I definitely like that matchup for Hempfield. They just, if they wrestle like they did last weekend, they are certainly going to be in the quarterfinals. And I honestly think they make it to the semifinals, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Waynesburg shouldn't have any problems with Shikellamy. Even a Waynesburg that is without Joe Simone with an injury, I still think they get past Shikellamy, but they won't get past Bethlehem Catholic. And we'll touch more on that in a second. For Cannon Mac, they've got a harder first round than they will a quarterfinal. So if you look at where they ended up, Chambersburg is very tough. I like Chambersburg a lot. I think they match up well with Cannon Mac. They're very hard nosed. They're kind of like, they're just a little gritty, right? They're a little bit gritty. They have a style and they stick to it. Cannon Mac's going to have a harder time with Chambersburg than they would over Cathedral Prep or Springford, in my opinion. I do think Cannon Mac's going to get out to the semifinals, though. So I think they're in a good position. Oh, if you're not Waynesburg, because Waynesburg is in the same quadrant of Becca, so that's not good. But outside of that, everything's good.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the teams overall, I mean, is it just kind of like the same way in AA? You have your top two, and then 3 and 4 are going to be what's decided.
Yeah, I mean, I said it last night, and Dustin said he loved the analogy. I said, these two teams are in different solar systems, right? You have Becca and Nazareth. I would say they are way ahead of the rest of the field, and Notre Dame, Green Pond, and Faith Christian way ahead of the rest of the field. Now, I would say Central Dauphin, Cannon Mac are closer to Nazareth than Burgettstown and Reynolds are to Notre Dame and Faith Christian. But yeah, these teams are they're very good. Becca is this may be the best Becca team that we've seen, and that's without Tyler Kasak, who's up in Happy Valley already getting ready for Penn State. So that's how good Becca is.
So you look at obviously the top half of the bracket. Do you like Hempfield area to get to the semifinal? So essentially, Bethlehem Catholic will knock off Waynesburg in the quarters and Hempfield area in the semis?
Yeah, so looking at the bracket, again, just my opinion, I think Hempfield's going to beat Penridge. There are some good matchups in that, but Hempfield's just, they're if they wrestle again like they did this past weekend, they're going to be in the semifinals, in my opinion. I think the Central Mountain Cumberland Valley match is going to be a close one. I do think Cumberland Valley will end up coming out on that one, and certainly Hempfield's going to have their hands full with some of those guys. But I really just like Hempfield just after what they did. I think they're going to be ready to rock, and I think they're not going to take it for granted that they're competing in Hershey. They were scheduled to be at the Pine Richland Duels that we're streaming on Saturday, and they were like, "Well, can't make it there. We got a date in Hershey, right?" So, not saying that they didn't expect to be here, but it's certainly they had to grind for it, right? You're the 11th seed, and you potentially could be you're the 11th seed in your district tournament, and you have a good shot to be in the semifinals of the state tournament. Like that's, I mean, maybe it shows how screwed up the system is, but it also shows how close teams are. And when you get hot at the right time, you get guys at the right weights, and you get guys right matchups. Anything can happen, right? But I do believe Bethlehem Catholic is going to beat Waynesburg. I believe they're going to beat Hempfield or whoever comes from the top. Becca's going to win it, right? I could. If you want to put money down, they're a safe bet. And I don't mean to be like sarcastic or anything, but they're just that damn good.
It's funny. You actually look at Hempfield area. They actually a Trinity, I would say bonehead move, I guess, but a Trinity move where they decided to bump Blake Reener up to wrestle Eli Carr, and he lost a match they probably thought they were going to win both those. If they don't make that move, Trinity might have beat Hempfield area. That's where you were talking about. Hempfield area may have lost their opening match, and instead they then rattle off huge wins to be able to be in this position that they're in. So that's just
same with Connellsville, right? Connellsville could have been here too, right? I mean, they did, if they were had some other things go their way, yeah, they could be here as well. If they had Zach Franks in the lineup, things should be different, right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Looking at the bottom half, so you like Cannon McMillan to get to that semifinal. What are their chances against Nazareth? I mean, Nazareth's got a gauntlet themselves. They got to beat Central Dauphin and Cannon McMillan to get to that final.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd rather be on the bottom half away from Becca if I am them. Cannon Mac, I'm not going to count out Cannon Mac whatsoever, but Nazareth is really good. Nazareth. Now they got their guys. They're even missing a few guys, but they're still really, really balanced. They're just solid from top to bottom. Cannon Mac's gonna get some wins there though. Should they wrestle now? Tom Hausnick said, he said last night, like, hey ho, don't look past Central Dauphin. I think Central Dauphin gets past LaSalle with not an issue, and I think Nazareth gets past Delaware Valley, who they already beat without an issue. I think that's a really good matchup. I think Central Dauphin and Nazareth are both wrestling really well at this time in February. Both those teams are very used to being here, right? So I think that will be a good matchup, but I think Nazareth will end up coming out on top, and I think Nazareth makes it to the finals because I think they're going to beat Cannon Mac. I just think they match up really well with them. You're going to get some bonus points up top with those big guys, and they've got flexibility now with having guys down. They definitely have some holes though. Like there are some guys that are going to give up bonus points, but through and through, they're really solid.
So you look at the way it falls, and it goes as you're predicting, Jeff. Would you say in a consolation semifinal, it's potential that you could see Waynesburg and Cannon Mac in one half and Hempfield area against Central Dauphin in the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you fill out the bracket and you look at how they drop, right? So the top half drops straight down from the semifinal. So we'll say in theory that's Hempfield losing to Becca, so they come down, so they're in the top half. On the bottom half, Cannon Mac makes it to the semifinals. They move all the way down to the bottom half. Yeah, I think you could see a potential I think you could see those teams all in there, right? Waynesburg beating Schick but losing in Q2, and then coming down and wrestling through to have potentially Canamac or as a rematch. So yeah, I think the chances are good. It just teams get hot in Hershey, and then they're on a roll. I mean, they got to get up early, they got to wrestle. Kind of these consolation matches, and teams like just always surprise me because they just get on a roll. Like they get their wrestlers just feeling good. You can feel it in the gym or in the arena too. You can feel like, man, that they're on a roll right now. It's going to be hard to stop them, right? So the momentum is a real thing there in the Giant Center. But I do think all the WPIAL teams are going to be in the mix because it's the two top teams, and then maybe another tier with Central Dauphin and Canamac and Waynesburg. But Waynesburg without Joe Simone's a different team. So like if he's not good to go, right, that's going to be it's going to be tough for them. Penridge, they're not going to go away, but District 7 is a little bit deeper than District 1 is. So I do like the WPIAL's chances of potentially coming away with a couple medals.
So if it falls the way it does, obviously they'd have a guaranteed winner between Canamac and Waynesburg, and it'd be fun to see that for a third time. Certainly, like you said, that without Joe Simone, it will be challenging for Waynesburg to get it done. But on the other side, Hempfield area against Central Dauphin. Can Hempfield area pull off one more magical upset and beat Central Dauphin and get a state medal?
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? I mean, geez, I'm not going to bet against them, right? I mean, they've been wrestling really well, and I certainly think that they're going to be able to stay in matches, right? I mean, we've seen how close these duels have been. There's been a lot of just 5.1 point criteria matches that have come down to the wire. So I don't think that they're counted out, right? It's just. It's all about bonus points. It's all about getting them and not giving them up, right? I mean, that's the key. It's not that hard, right? If you win the flip, right, you control a little bit more of the matchups. Your good guys end up getting bonus points. Your other guys that typically aren't the best and they don't give up bonus points. That's a recipe for success, right? And that's what it comes down to. And teams like Nazareth, they do a really good job at that, right? Central Dauphin, I would say, also does a pretty decent job of that as well. So, yeah, Hempfield's not. I'm not going to count him out.
Well, it should be a lot of fun to see how it all shakes out here starting tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, wrestling gets underway here with AA and then AAA. So also mentioned, Jeff, we are still streaming other wrestling action outside of what's going on at the PIAA tournament, and that's the wrestling happening at the Pine Richland Duels. A number of WPIAL schools wrestling in this one, including, just to name them right off, you got West Mifflin, Avonworth, Greensburg, Salem, Moon, Pine Richland, Trinity, Greater Latrobe, Plum, Bethel Park. All teams, a lot of teams that were in the WPIAL team tournament. How do you like this one shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a lot. I'm glad that Latrobe was able to come in and be a part of the duels here because they add a lot of firepower here. So Pine Richland, we know how good Pine Richland is. We know how good Bethel Park has been. Right, Trinity, we just talked about them, right? They potentially could have been here at the state tournament. So I think we're going to see a lot of good wrestling. I think there's going to be a lot of good matchups here. I'm excited to see if Nate Roth goes for Latrobe and see if they get him some matches before the individual postseason. Pine Richland, Bethel Park, those two teams are on the rise, and I think Pine Richland's been slowly getting better and better. Coach Colvin and his staff have just been, really good at getting the most out of their guys. Vaughn Spencer being back is huge. Mac Miller, a freshman that's been wrestling tough, and then of course the Ferraro brothers, Shank up top. He's been wrestling tough. So yeah, it's going to be a fun little dual tournament when most eyes are going to be on Hershey. You're going to have an opportunity to see some big names going at it. Prior to the individual postseason. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited that we're able to bring coverage of it and stream it. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Make sure you stay with us on Rockfin to check out the wrestling action. Obviously, anytime you'll be, I'm sure everybody will be following along the WPIAL schools to see how they do here at the Hershey. But this wrestling's all day long. It starts at 9 a.m. at Pine Richland, and the last match is scheduled to start at 5:10. So PIAA finals will already be done, and there'll still be wrestling going on at Pine Richland. So make sure you check it out. It'll be going on till what 6:30, 7 o'clock at night,
Yeah,
probably.
I'll be watching it on my drive back from Hershey. I'll be watching it, while I'm in Hershey, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited. They got 4 mats, so it's gonna take a little bit longer, right? But there's just going to be a ton of talent. And I don't think I mentioned Plum. Plum has just been, they've been incredible this year as well. So I'm excited to see a guy like Nina Walker and all the Campbells and all those folks just go head to head. So yeah, there's a lot of the Allegheny County teams, but you also, you got Trinity, you got Latrobe, you got some teams from outside of the WPIAL that are going to make it a very interesting tournament here.
Should be a lot of fun, Jeff, and obviously the PIAA tournament as well. But next week we'll be recapping a state tournament, and then we are actually going to be previewing some individual wrestling action. Hard to believe it's going to be underway.
It is hard to believe.
Next Saturday, we're back to section tournaments in AA.
Your favorite, Greg's favorite. Greg loves his section tournaments.
So we'll be looking at sections in AA next week, and then from there on we'll be, looking at the individuals from here on out, Jeff. It's here. It's postseason time, and should be a lot of fun. We got 5 weekends of wrestling left,
and some more after that too. We got the Classic. We've got NCAAs. We've got a lot.
Well, make sure everybody stay tuned this week. We'll have everything for you here on Rockfin, all the live updates and interviews happening from the Giant Center, and obviously the Pine Richland duels as well. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. We appreciate you listening in and watching in to War Up on the WPIAL.